I think I'm going to need to turn off notifications on this. Hello, how are you doing today? So for anybody who is new, I do like to try to get out of town a bit before I get involved too much in the stream. A lot of this is just due to a lot more to pay attention to at the moment. Doing pretty good actually. I've walked probably 150 miles in the last week, and I'm a little sore, but not like too sore to where I can't do anything. Just sore enough to feel a little bit, you know, mostly in the lower back. Maybe a little bit of inflammation there, but not like terrible either. Nothing I'm not used to is a good way to put it. So the walk from where I just was to out of town is roughly 10 to 15 minutes. It's a nice little walk, and thank you for the subscription there. Really do appreciate that. Once we do get out of town, I will be talking quite a bit more about, you know, the whole like purpose of this. I don't know where my motivation comes from, honestly, to walk. I've always I started off with biking. I used to bike 40 to 80 miles a day. This was coming out of high school, so 18 to 2021, I biked literally almost every single day. Probably actually up until, I was 23. So 21 to 23 was when I was kind of really experimenting with which I prefer, rather that be walking or biking. So I really kind of paid attention to a lot of the negatives to both, and walking just happened to be the best. One of the biggest negatives to biking was, pretty sure I have carpal tunnel in both hands. And I mean, I've had it for a long time. If so, because the reason I quit biking so much was my hands would go numb while I'm holding the handlebars. And after you do that for so long, you really start to pick up on, is it even worth it to bike? Then I really, had a bad breakup and stuff. I did ride my bike quite a bit during the process of how all of that was being handled and situated and stuff. Walking more, in my opinion, walking is a lot more of a freeing thing than anything, because not only is walking, I don't know, I feel freer is the best way I can describe it. I don't know. It feels very accomplishing too. Hello, looks like I'm getting some more viewers to pop on in. How are we doing today? But yeah, so I started off walking about 10K steps a day. That's a little above average. Average is around, I think it was either 4 to 6 or like 5 to 7K steps a day is like an average. So I was doing about 10K a day. Nothing like extreme. Then once I really understood that I liked walking, it went up to 15K pretty quickly. Then over the years, pretty much stayed between 15K to 25K a day. There were a couple of days where, you know, I did like 40K, which 42K steps in one day was the most I'd ever done. Well, outside of yesterday, which was 60K. But aside that, this last week has been mostly above 40K steps a day. So a lot of people think, well, you're probably pretty tired, or you're not taking care of yourself very well, or you know, all of this and that. But I've been really, health has been my number one focus during all of this, you know. So the fact of being able to set a primary focus of health as, you know, the number one like thing I have to worry about throughout all of this, you know, like if I'm not worrying about my health, and I'm not doing these streams because I won't be healthy enough to. I will admit there's a lot of things I need to learn still about how to take care of myself when like making these walks. A lot of that is just due to, not only is it not common to walk this much, going from about 25 to 20K steps a day to 40 to 60K steps a day is a pretty big jump. Yeah, I appreciate that. So I fell out of gaming. I would have been 23. It was right after my breakup. I fell out of gaming pretty heavily because after all of that, you know, I had a near-death experience during that time too. And you know, after all of that, I just didn't see the interest in gaming. Because a lot of people used it to distract themselves with, but I learned during that near-death experience, what am I distracting myself from? You know, and when I really put it together, I'm distracting myself from the environment I'm in. I felt very trapped, very controlled, you know, just very like stuck in this loop. And once I figured all of that out, I kind of set a point to at least try to accept, not maybe accept, but just try to like look on the brighter side of things. So that was a major goal there for a while, just looking on the brighter side of things. Unfortunately, it's hard to do that when you're distracting yourself, meaning games just kind of had to go. Oh, there goes the little chipmunk. Don't know if you guys were able to see that too, but yeah, so I guess this is kind of a nice conversation to have, because it does lead into a big part of the scope of this, is because a lot of why I am doing this and why I want to do this is the freedom. Like, a lot of people don't understand how freeing something like this is, especially when you're trapped in an environment where you're always told no, you can't, you know, stuff like that, like negative down-putting things like, well, what do you mean I can't? This person did it in this state or this area, or, you know, well, why can't I do it here? And once you start figuring stuff out, and this is where the philosophy part of this comes in, is I really like deep thinking. So when I thought deeply about that stuff, I really love this experiment, or I guess the meaning behind this experiment. So this is probably going to be my favorite one to tell on stream, or at least one of them. There was a time where fleas were put in a jar. The jar didn't have a lid put on it, so the fleas, were able to jump above and beyond where the lid would be. So then a lid was put on. Quote unquote limitations. They were limited to only being able to jump as high as the lid was, because the lid was on. They were in the jar, the lid was on, they couldn't get out. So then they removed the lid, and what do you think happened? The fleas didn't try to jump any higher than what they were already limited to. So I look at the lid as an opinion. The lid did not have to be there, but it was put there. That's basically what an opinion is. It's not needed, but it's said. So a lot of the overall scope of this whole thing is I kind of want to figure out what true limitations are versus opinionated limitations are. And once I really get going, I do plan on traveling like further away from here, different states, different countries, even if I get the opportunities to. And I just want to set out and explore. And through the exploration, I want my deep thoughts to be observed by other people. And I'm going to be writing a philosophical book before too long. I'm going to be sharing my philosophy on my website, which there should be a link somewhere to my website to be able to access it. Right now the website's full of photography and no proses, I think is what they're technically called. But I will be working on adding a lot of those philosophical writings or proses probably before too long. Kind of wanted to build some traction and all of that first, but we are pretty well out of town now, so let's go over a bit more of not the overall goal or plan, but let's look at a little bit more of a short-term goal aspect of this. So there's a couple of ways I can go about this. One is I can find a business or brand or somebody who just kind of wants a nice shout out. Or I guess a collaboration is a better way to put it, because I'm not looking at this as money or ways to make money. I don't care about money. The whole point of walking like this is I want to live a lot more free, and once you realize that with money comes less freedom, a lot of people like to hide the fact that you feel a lot more free with a lot more money. But what happens if you lose all source of income? Are you really more free if you have more money and you lose it all? Because then you gotta worry about where to stay, what to drive, all these other bills. And that's not very freeing. That's very trapping, So, I do have a car. I do have a place I'm staying. I do have a good amount of things. I don't have a job and I'm not making any money. So a lot of this does come from experience. And that's another thing I like to focus on is I don't typically speak unless if I've experienced it. Keep that in mind, just because one of my biggest pet peeves when it comes towards explaining things or just kind of talking to people about my past experiences is when they remove the fact that it was a past experience of mine and they tell me I'm wrong. That's a pretty big pet peeve, because I experienced it. How are you gonna tell me I'm wrong? Like, I literally lived it. So, anyway, short-term goal is to set something up or system up. So I want to do like a monthly overview type thing. So next month, or I guess start of June, I plan on, there's trash right there. I want to pick that up. I mean, I can do it now. I just don't have anything to do it with. And I don't have nothing to put it in. So I'm trying to figure out how to go about that at the moment. I also don't want to, I guess I should put it this way. I kind of want to see how much trash there is so I can judge, am I going to need more resources than just a couple of bags, Right now it's not looking too bad. Really not bad at all. But so next month is going to be heavily focused towards cleaning up the environment. But throughout that month, I want to spread some kind of awarenesses and stuff too. One of the biggest awarenesses, this will be probably the third week in June. I want people to drive safer, especially when it comes to pedestrians walking alongside the road like this, because believe it or not, you won't believe how many people have a perfect opportunity to get over or slow down and get over or slow down in general, and they just keep speeding on by, and usually I'll be walking about right here because there's not much room to really maneuver in a lot of these areas. Like here I could move over more, but like if I was walking over there, it's a bit steeper, and when you're walking as much as I am, you don't really want to invite that type of movement, I would say, just because I'm walking a lot, it's very risky to be doing that. Now once I get a bit more acclimated into these walks, it'll be a lot different, but right now I got to be a lot more careful and just kind of pay attention more to what I'm doing to my surroundings. If I can get over, I can get over. Just stuff like that. Okay, so anyways, month of June, cleanup month. First week in June, like a migraine, headache awareness type week. I want to heavily focus a lot on, I guess, that type of, I don't know if it's technically an illness or what it is, but I really want to focus on that type of disorder, because I was diagnosed with cluster headaches about 10 years ago. For those who don't know what a cluster headache is, one of the worst headaches you can ever get. It's not necessarily because, I don't know how to really describe it, because a lot of people, they hear headache and they're like, oh, you can get over it, but that's not really the case. So to describe what a cluster headache is, usually the bout lasts for 3 weeks to a couple of months, for normal types of cluster headaches. And it's described as being worse than a migraine, and actually described as being up there with the pain of childbirth, being in childbirth and being in labor and stuff like that. One of my biggest pet peeves with these types of headaches is when people say they understand the type of headache I have and stuff like that, but they just act like I just need to get over it. And it's just like, there are people that are on disability because of these headaches, and you're just telling me to get over it. Like, it's kind of one of those very misunderstood type disorders. But yeah, I'm gonna really be focused on that type of awareness. Then the second week in June, I do plan on doing something like a walk with Christ or something like that, just because while I'm not a dedicated Christian, I do believe in Christ to the degree of, I do believe he was here. I do believe he our sins. You know, I do believe a lot of that stuff. And I do have a lot of very familiar beliefs that the Christians have as well, because I don't know, I just really resonates with me, and a lot of that is due to the near-death experience. I was agnostic before then, and I guess technically I still am to a degree, but more of a dedicated to like Christ and stuff like that. I am still kind of trying to work on that, just because the idea of these streams isn't necessarily the journey itself, but more or less, I guess it's not the designation. It's the journey is a better way of putting it. So I'm not worried about where I'm going. I just kind of want to observe with you guys, you know. I want it to be a nice, peaceful little stream about just a lot of things. The philosophical side of this. So the Wandering Philosopher isn't going to be dedicated towards just this one area. It's going to be like, once I get going, once I'm a bit more stable and, you know, able to walk, you know, a bit more of, I don't know, I might have to push for walking like 15 miles at once, which I could go up to the state park right now. That's not the issue, because technically I won't really be in town and stuff, or would extend the live stream quite a bit. Live stream does depend on battery life and stuff. Let me make sure I'm seeing the... Alright, yeah, so the live stream will probably end once I get to the city, just before I get to the city. So I've got another, what time is it? I've been streaming for, got about another hour and a half before I get there. Of course, that does depend on battery life still too. If I like to try to keep 20% battery life. I feel like that's a very solid number to stay at. Hope they aren't stopping to talk to me, but it sounds like they might be. I'm not sure. No, just tractors. But one thing that really inspired this was, there's somebody I heard about through Facebook, and I forget exactly, I think it's Jake Walks America or something like that, and that really kind of made me think. And I've always thought about traveling, you know. I've really wanted to go places. I really let environment and fear set me back on that. And in all honesty, was I set back, or did God just prepare me for all of this, you know? I've gotten a lot wiser, I would say, to a degree. Alright, no worries. Thank you for chatting with me. I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a good day and everything. I'll be doing this quite a bit though, so don't feel like you're missing out on nothing. And also feel free to share with people that you may think are interested as well. Also, my live counter is a little off, so if there is anybody else in the stream, my live counter has been off on the 0 spectrum for some time now, but I'm still receiving, some comments. So it's kind of a situation where if I do get quiet, it's not because I'm ignoring the stream, it's because I'm just kind of trying to take things in, one thing at a time. I do need to pay attention to that battery life though. We started off at, what did we start off at? I think 75%. Somewhere around there. We're at 60%, which been losing about 5% every 10 minutes. So unfortunately, I'm not sure I will be able to necessarily go to the point I was wanting to, which is around 2 hours. But eventually we will. Try not to get people when they're doing their yard work and stuff. Also, I am kind of trying to pay attention to the comments, but not so much at this time. To get it set up so that way I don't have to necessarily carry the phone the whole time. The biggest challenge is I was looking for setups that eliminate the, or I guess that makes it hands-free, but they don't really offer anything that where I can still see the screen that I saw. Bit more now. But yeah, so to get back to the scope of this whole thing, kind of a bit of a recap too. It has been a couple of minutes since I really was getting into it, but June, I'm dedicating towards environmental cleanup. The first week in June, I'm going to do a migraine awareness type week. Second week's going to be dedicated towards, like a walk with Christ type thing. Third week is going to be a driving safety thing. And then the fourth week was more of like a reflective week, like what did I learn? Like just kind of looking back on things, like just kind of stuff like that. but I also am watching the battery life pretty closely at the moment too, so if I see that it's dropping too quick or anything like that, I will have to end the stream until I can get a power bank. I feel like a power bank is very needed, at least for longer walks. If I could have a charger, I might be able to use my laptop, but my laptop doesn't stay charged for too long either. It's just because the type of laptop I got, it wasn't meant to be anything special. So the battery life on it's like 2 or 3 hours or something like that. Give me a moment here, guys. Kind of just taking in the moment right here. This is kind of one of my favorite areas. Just kind of, I don't know, it's just kind of nice overall. But yeah, once things get a bit more established, I really think that's when I'll get a bit more like deeper into my thoughts and stuff, just because right now it's a lot of learning new things. I've learned as well, and this is kind of a deep thought in itself, but I've learned that anytime there's anything new introduced to me, and this is probably like a human thing in general, my thought patterns are a lot different because they're focused more on understanding that aspect of, you know, the new thing over what you already know. So my deep thoughts really come from the things I already have experienced and learned. But if I haven't already experienced or learned it, then it's kind of hard for me to really sit back and reflect on it. And reflection is one of my favorite things to do. I really love looking back at things and be like, oh, that could have been done differently, or oh, is that what that means? You know, kind of stuff like that. It's just a lot. And I will admit we are doing quite a bit better battery life wise than we did yesterday. I already know why though too. It's because I had some feature I didn't even know I had turned on. I thought I turned it off, but apparently it was still on, and it was taking up like 5% every, I don't even remember now, 10 minutes or something like that, I think. Which, I guess granted, it's about doing the same thing right now, I guess. I don't know. I'll get that figured out eventually. A lot of it's just a power bank, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, it's a very nice open area. I saw a bird run this area too. That I recently started bird watching this year, and my mom has got this fairly old bird book. You know, it's got all the birds in it that are within Indiana. You know, it shows you the locations they're from, like they should technically be in and stuff, like if they're all year, summer, winter, you know, it tells you all of that. I'm kind of curious to see if I can see it, but it was a really weird one. It looked kind of like a mockingbird to a degree, like something in that species. And saw it over here. I think I saw it over here at first, and then it went over there. It's been 3 days ago, but it had this, it kind of looked like a keel deer, but it really had a deep red to it. And I've never seen a bird like that, and then I go look it up and not see anything. It is also possible it's more of a brown than a red, and I just wasn't able to get a good look at it, basically. Yeah, I will admit, hands-free for this would be really nice though, because after, you know, a couple of minutes of holding your phone like this isn't too bad, you know, even up to an hour, but after that it kind of gets a little tough. Not really tough, but your hand starts to cramp. Your hand's all sweaty and stuff, because right now it's kind of hot and a little humid, I would say. But overall, it's not bad. It's not like I can't do it. Right now, I'm also trying to decide if I want to. Yeah. So I'm going to be meeting up with someone today. So I'm only going to be able to go so far before I end the stream. Again, it'll probably be about 2 hours in total. So I got about another hour and 20 minutes left to go. But it also does depend on, you know, the battery life. Nice over here too. Thought it was going to be a little bit, I guess, hotter than it is now. Maybe it was the humidity I was feeling a bit earlier. Just kind of the way the sun was hitting me and stuff. It was a little, I guess it's getting a little windy though too, so that's definitely helping, is the fact of the wind. Also would like to point out, you know, it probably sounds like I'm breathing pretty heavily, decently right now, but not like, a lot of it's just because I'm talking while walking, and that's just something I kind of got to get used to. I'm not saying that as like, oh, well, I'm just gonna have to push myself through it and stuff. More as, it's just more of a, I don't usually talk while I walk, so it's kind of getting, you know, used to it. I mean, obviously, if it gets to a point to where I need to stop or absolutely need to end the stream, I'm going to, you know, I'm not going to force myself into signing up for disaster, you know. I do appreciate everybody that has been tuning in though, because I do know this is a bit of a slow start, but we all start somewhere, right? Ideally, once things get going a bit more, once, you know, because I plan on streaming at least once a day now since I started streaming. There are a couple of other things I'm still working on trying to get set up and stuff, like really want a view counter for my steps. Displayed at least. Might see if I can't get a hold of a streaming company just to see how easily it will be to add something like that. Streamlabs might be able to allow like a own code into a widget. If that's the case, then that'd be lovely. But yeah. Another thing I would like to mention too is I don't want nobody else sorry. Don't want nobody else going out there and trying to do something like this, not like without the proper what would I say, because I wouldn't say proper training, because I never really trained to go from 20k steps to 60k steps, but there's a lot that goes into it. You know, you need to have a good mindset. You need to know when you need to just kind of take a step back, you know, because I don't want somebody walking, you know, or not even walking at all, to go into walking 20 miles a day, because that's going to come with a lot of complications. Definitely to make sure you are taking care of your body. That will be the most important thing of it all, I would say, is you really got to make sure you take care of your body. Just, yeah, you just really got to pay attention to it. I do need to get better shoes. That's another thing that you'll want to make sure, because believe it or not every shoe is designed to be walking in for this long. Like everyday, you know, short-term use, yeah, but walking this much, because I'll be hitting probably close to, let me think, because if I walk 50k steps every day for a week, right, that's 350k steps, which will equate to 175 miles. If you were to walk 175 miles in a week and expect a cheap pair of Walmart shoes to last you like that, which granted, I have a cheap pair of Walmart shoes, and they've survived the trip, but pretty say they're on their last leg right now, you know. Kind of looked at them before I even did all of this, and they're starting to show signs, but that kind of brings me to the fact of, like, I kind of want to do some tests on some nice pair of cheap shoes, you know, because these have lasted me a good minute. I usually go through a pair every 3 months. Can push 4 if I really wanted to deal with all the holes and water getting in them and stuff, but try not to. Yeah, oh yeah, my friend was gonna meet me, but I don't know if he's going to now. I don't know if he knows I'm live. He gets busy though, you know. Busy life. I'm probably just gonna enjoy walking for a bit. If anybody comments, I will be trying to pay attention to that here and there. But I'm just gonna chill a bit, you know. Kind of one of those scenes right here. Oh, there goes the squirrel. A couple of them. We're at 45%. Battery, I started off at around 75. Yeah, we'll really have to pay attention to that. I like to try to give myself, I might try to do 25% just for the sake of it, because I really don't like seeing it into red at all. But I mean, that still gives me a good at least 20 minutes or so. Might give my friend a bit of a call just to see what's going on. Make sure he, yeah. We'll wait to do that though. Pretty nice out this way. You know, pretty nice. thinking about taking a different road today than what I usually do. Sorry, my back's starting to, actually I might have to stop and top it. Feels like a pinch in the shoulder blades somewhere. Trying to reposition my phone there a little bit, but yeah, it's. I do think, because when I was looking at the laptop, you know, the videos and stuff, might have to hold my phone from a different angle, which arguably in itself will have its own complications, you know. But we'll just kind of play around and see. I also do think I plan on live streaming again later tonight. I know, 3 streams in one day. Not really, I don't know, it's just, it makes sense to just kind of live stream when I'm out walking. You know, I'm already walking, why not stream? Why not enjoy it in a nice little country with people? So, one thing I have noticed with these walks is, about halfway, usually not even halfway, you really start feeling the, tiredness, I would say, but it's not like extreme exhaustion. It's more or less like my body trying to kick into another gear type thing, you know. And I mean, obviously that's gonna, you know, the longer I do this, like right now it's been an hour, I'm feeling a little tired. Not like I can't make it. Obviously I can make it. I've been doing this for the past week, but it's kind of the point of, I guess, being able to pay attention to stuff like that, because the more you learn your body and what your body's trying to say, the easier it will be to manage. I'm not saying that it's going to be like an indefinite yes, you know, you can manage it type thing, but it's certainly a lot easier to catch on to what your body is trying to tell you. So for me, I just basically take it as a, you're working pretty hard, you know. Kind of the tiredness it feels like, you know. Like a long day of being out in the sun, you know, doing a lot of manual labor type thing. And it's not quite that, to that extent of tiredness. It's more of just the sense of, I don't know. Just feels like I've been out in the sun for a minute, is a good way to put it. Yeah, guys, if I do have to stop to get this everything situated, I don't know what I'm going to do with the stream just yet, because I don't have it set up to necessarily pause it in the sense of like taking a break at the moment. Should be okay for now though. And I mean, obviously, you do all this walking, you're gonna come across some of these complications. A lot of times it's not necessarily a bad thing that it's happening. It's your body's just adjusting and getting used to it. So yesterday I went from, I just kept going straight. There's a little curve there, S-curve there. Instead of going straight, I think I'm gonna take a turn, and I'm going down. There's a road right here. You see where those telephone poles are? There's a road right there. I'm gonna go down that road. Should be able to go down that road for, I think, 2 miles before I hit another road that I'm fairly familiar with. I don't usually travel this road, but just changing the scenery. Well, I mean, I've been walking this road, but driving wise, I don't usually take this road, so it's not one that I'm necessarily familiar with, more or less, in the driving aspect. But I grew up, going down the road that I got ready to head on. That was ironically the road that we went on the least when I was growing up, but still enough that I'm familiar with it. This road that I'm on now, growing up, can't remember really a single time we'd been down it, which is kind of interesting when you think about stuff like that, because you can grow up and be familiar with certain settings, but not all of them. Yeah, guys, I do think I'm going to end the stream here. I'm only at 35% battery, but I just believe I need to give myself a little bit of time to understand more of the battery usage, not in the sense of how to prevent it, but more thus the sense of how to deal with the low battery at this time. Because I'm doing all of this, I don't want the phone to shut off, or die because low battery, and then not be able to count steps, when I still have another 20 or another like 2 4K steps to take, So really thinking about how to do the ending quote thing too, because I want to stick with the end of the stream quote. But if I do multiple streams in the same day, I feel like it should be the same quote, simply for the fact of it just makes sense. I won't be overusing this right now. Alright, so guys, thanks for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day. At the end of the stream quote is, sometimes we lose ourselves, but that's okay, because sometimes puzzles have missing pieces, but they're still fun to put back together. Bye for now.